Here come the hot topics from a higher perspective. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, world. Happy New Year. Welcome to the very first episode of The Higher View. We created this show as a response to The View that's on regular television. They've been on for 25 years, and we realized we needed to bring a higher consciousness to current events and to what's presently happening in the world. So our intent for this show, just like with The View, we have 5 co-hosts. None of us are more important than the other. The only reason I'm introducing is because it was kind of my idea, but I don't want this to be my show. This is The Higher View, and every person who's here is an equal opportunity show host, if you will. So each week we are going to have a different person who is going to be playing the lead role, in a sense, just to kind of get the show started. And we'll be talking about current events. We'll be talking about what we see in the world from a higher perspective. And each of us is going to be bringing in our own perspectives so that we can see from all different views, if you will. And so that's what this higher view is all about, is bringing in a higher spiritual understanding, a higher consciousness into current events, and each of us finding, working our way through the subject matter and sharing with the audience how we are seeing it, depending on what the subject matter is. If it's an area of expertise for 2 of the hosts, they'll spend more camera time than the rest of us. So this isn't your typical roundtable where everybody gets equal camera time. It's more about the area of expertise. We are all here in this beautiful community of the divine feminine through each of us. Yes, sometimes there may even be a male co-host. We haven't quite decided about that yet. And sometimes we will have a male guest come in to bring the masculine to this. So we had this idea of creating a response to The View. So welcome everyone to The Higher View. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves and give our vision for 2023, because that, of course, is what's on everyone's mind right now. This is a whole new year. And what do we see for 2023? What is our vision for 2023? And really help all of you who are watching get into the spirit of what's possible for this new baby year. And so for me, just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Victoria Reynolds. I'm a spiritual luminary. I'm an angelic walk-in and the Oracle of Freedom. And I'm an author, an international speaker, and I'm the primary host creator of Fearless and Free TV. And what I bring to the show, to The Higher View, my area of expertise is spirituality versus religion. Not that they're against each other, but they are 2 very different concepts. So I bring more of a what I call grounded spirituality and being able to see the world through less dogmatic eyes and focusing on teaching humanity how to see through the eyes of love rather than through the eyes of fear. So that's my area of expertise, fearlessness and spiritual freedom. My vision for 2023, and what's really, really interesting is, I think I'm creating some feedback here. So the end of each year, I ask for a word. What is my word for this incoming new year? And what I kept hearing is sovereignty in 2023. Sovereignty. And I thought that sovereignty just meant freedom. But I'm a total word nerd. And I dig into the actual meaning of words, and then I dig into the etymology of a word. So sovereignty in 2023 at its surface means free. And so many people I'm talking to are seeing that same thing, free in 2023. What does that mean? So there's that free in 2023 that for me, and I can share with all of you, I have 2 children. My daughter graduated in 2020. My son is graduating from high school this year, and I'm going to be free to step into a completely different version of myself. Like, what does the second half of my life have in store for me? So free that, it's like free to spread my wings and travel and teach and do my soul's work. So that's part of sovereignty. When I look deeper into sovereignty, it means self-governing. So what it represents is that the ability to be independent and governing your own life rather than being dependent on anyone else to govern your life for you. Then I went even deeper into etymology of sovereignty. And what I discovered is that it means superpower. So for me, 2023 is all about embracing, expanding my superpower. so, so that's my intent and that's my vision for 2023. And I really am seeing that vision for the rest of humanity as well. This is the year that much of humanity becomes more sovereign, more self-governing, and more of our spiritual superpowers are going to start being activated. So that's my vision for this incoming year. I think 2023 is going to be a breakout year for a lot of people and for a lot of humanity as we face more and more changes during this extraordinary time of transition. So that's it from me. And Kathy, do you want to go next?
Sure. How can you beat what you just said? Sovereignty, how perfect. So my name's Kathy Mason. I am the host of a show that's been on for over 3 years called Conscious Business Zone, because I'm a conscious business alchemist. For the past 22 years, I've been working with behind the scenes and in front of the scenes now with a lot of the Hay House authors, a lot of the people that are on Gaia TV, a lot of the change agents that have ushered in this new era that we're so excited about. What I find is that my personal life mission is to help as many people wake up to their divinity as possible. And so I do it by helping these people that already have the leadership role in different areas, whether it's education or science or spirituality or healing. I help them get out and launch them in the world, in the public eye. What I'm finding that is so exciting about this time period is that the people that are seeing the changes and seeing that they can make a difference, that they're not resisting the change. They're embracing the change and using the energy of change. So that fear energy that you might have, using that to push their things out in the world. Because every single person came here, stood in line to get these bodies to be here right now. We won the lottery, you guys. And so I want to help as many of the people that have something to say that is for the highest good of all to step up and be able to get their information out. Now, my word, I'm very grateful for last year. I had a great year. I'm grateful, very grateful to be in with my soul family here, soul sisters, and love you guys. And what my word for this coming year is illumination, because by illuminating the truth and illuminating the divine aspect of you, being the mirror to you, and helping you see the powerful being that you are, this world can really make a big change easily rather than in a difficult way. So thank you, Victoria, for inviting me to be one of the angels here. And that I think I can pass now.
Okay. You know what? Maybe in the future, the person that talks can pass it on to the next person. We're still figuring out how this works. Okay. So, Kathy, you choose who goes next.
Oh, well, Caroline's on my side here, and I've introduced her before.
Hi, I am Caroline Cheng, host and producer of Awake to Oneness Radio. I launched my show 8 years ago, actually 8 years ago this month. January of 2015, I had the inspiration to launch my podcast, and that was 6 months after my son's transition. I know that I'm here for a purpose. Like I said, 8 years ago, my son transitioned, 8.5 years ago to be exact. And my daughter transitioned almost exactly a month ago.
Hmm.
And when my son transitioned 8 years ago, I knew I'm here for a purpose and a mission, and I had to live that purpose and mission. And my awakening actually was through science. So I bridge science and spirituality because I know that what quantum physics is teaching us today, which actually quantum physics is over 100 years old. So this is not even new science. The science of oneness, the science of that we're all connected, we're all one. God is all there is. There is nothing outside of God. This has been proven scientifically, and this has been taught for eons through spirituality and ancient wisdom. So I awoke into that truth in 2007. And after my son's transition is where I stepped out on the public stage. And after my daughter transitioned a month ago, I'm even more grounded and have actually added more missions since my daughter's transition a month ago. So I am not only a host of my own show, I'm also an author. I'm also a inspirational speaker and a mentor. I mainly mentor those that have loved ones in spirit that are really struggling with that because I know, like breathing, not just believe, not just think, I know both my children are right here with me now. They're not gone. None of our loved ones ever go. There is only eternal life. There is no such thing as death, and I know it. And when you know that, you can live with a sense of peace, knowing that everything is happening in perfect divine timing and in perfect divine order. So for this year, I am so excited for this year. I'm a part of this beautiful team right here, this beautiful family of conscious women. I'm just so excited. So that's just one of my new projects for this year. I have a lot of new projects on my plate for this year, and I'm so excited. I love the fact that Victoria talked about sovereignty. Now, sovereignty has been something that I've been grounded in for a while. Matter of fact, I had these shirts made up that I am a sovereign divine being of light. That's the only thing I identify myself with. I know I have a body, which is to get around in this 3D matrix, but my body is not who I am. My body's no different than the Avatar. I know the new movie Avatar just came out over the holidays. I haven't seen it. I have a friend that saw it. I loved Avatar, but it's just an avatar. It's not who I am. Who I am is a sovereign divine being of light. And each one of us has to discover from within who we are. No one outside of you, no book, no teacher, no lecture, no workshop can tell you who you are. It comes from within. And when you embrace who you truly are and discover from within your purpose for being here, and we got in line. We like, yes, we won the lottery because we wanted to be here. Every one of us, every person on the planet wanted to be here, especially at this time of the great awakening. 2020, March of 2020, my higher self said, humanity's great awakening has begun. And since that day, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. We're here. Now it's kind of a rocky road, but if we keep our vibration high, like this is the higher view. I have been looking at everything that's been happening the last few years from the higher view perspective. And that's what this show is all about. We're going to talk about current events from the higher view, from the soul view, because you are a soul having a temporary human experience. These are not words. We know many people say that, but when you live that way, it's a different experience altogether. Your life will change overnight when you start living from your soul's perspective and not from what I call the small human perspective, from your avatar perspective, which is very limited. Your soul perspective knows exactly why you're here. And when you start living your purpose, life becomes magical. So, thank you so much. for having me. Oh, Victoria, I'll let you pick the next person.
Well, the next person on my screen is Goddess Gloria. So, Gloria, you want to go?
All right. Thank you so much. I am Goddess Gloria. Thank you so much for including me in your magic. And to everyone who's watching us, thank you for joining our magic. I'm really excited this year. I'm a healer. I'm also a comic, an author, a mother, an entrepreneur. I've accomplished a lot of great things. And I think that moving forward for 2023, what we're doing is going to be a great accomplishment. My goal is to unite us all in our gifts so that we don't even have to use words for our communication. And I've been blessed with the gift of comedy. And so I'm excited to help everyone awaken to their higher selves and connect to source with the laughter and joy so that we can heal and ascend with laughter and joy. It's a catapult to our higher selves. I'm looking forward to having everyone unite, and my word for 2023 is unity. United, we heal each other. United, we heal ourselves. United, we heal the world. Thank you so much. And I'm going to call on Geraldine next.
Yeah, thank you so much. Beautiful. My name is Geraldine Orozco. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I specialize in something called epigenetic psychotherapy. And then my primary area of work is working with people in shifting and seeing how alchemical transformation changes and shifts our genetic structure and how we can change patterns that we're inheriting genetically through our ancestral lineages in order to embody our highest expression. And I'm also owner of Bay Area Meditation here in San Francisco. And I teach corporate meditation essentially to companies. And I also have a YouTube channel. And for this year, first of all, I'm honored to be a part of this incredible program that we are looking at the higher view of things. And I think it's much needed to have a plethora of different perspectives to help us shift and grow in the way that we see the world, with so much confusion out there. So for this year, I would say the veil is thinning. We know that the veil is thinning in general as we're moving and evolving into higher frequency collectively. But I feel this year the focus will be the veil will thin between one another. I think that we are learning how to, as we went through major separation and compartmentalization of ideas, segments, all kinds of concepts are separating a lot of families, a lot of people, a lot of groups. So let's focus on coming into lifting the veil between one another without fear of truth, or knowing how to hold our space in sovereignty, as Victoria was saying, in the ability where we can become united and also hold our own energetic expression uniquely as it is in order to contribute to the collective unity. So this is my hope for this year, that we uncover all of the deepest shadows within ourselves that keep us in judgment, separation, and come into more of a unity consciousness. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Geraldine. That was really beautiful. And so one of the things that I've been hearing the last couple of years, and yes, Caroline, I got exactly the same message in the spring of 2020 of Great Awakening is upon us. So we've all been in this higher consciousness way of moving through life for at least the last 10 years. I know that we're part of this next wave of spiritual understanding. And the reason we woke up early is so that we could help the rest of humanity through their awakening process. So we've all been at this for a while. And we started hearing 10, 12 years ago that a great awakening was coming. And that we were being cultivated, and we were cultivating all of our gifts in order to be prepared. And we are all practicing on each other. How many events would we go? It's like, oh, hey, it's you again. So we were all practicing on each other for the last 10 years. And the guidance I got about 10 years ago is there would come a time when we would no longer be practicing on each other because there was going to be a great awakening and the masses would need the services that we had learned how to cultivate, the gifts that we had already learned how to cultivate. So that, again, yes, I started seeing that too, Caroline, in 2020, and the masses would start waking up. And when we went into lockdown, the guidance I got was that this was a time for everyone to go inside. And what happened is that people started going not only inside their houses, but they started going inside themselves. And when you look for God, God is within. And that a lot of people started to have that breakthrough. There started to be this surgence of awakeness and also awareness. I actually use those two terms independently because there are a lot of people who are aware of the corruption that's been plaguing the planet for thousands of years, but they're not spiritually awake yet. And there are a lot of people who are spiritually awake, yet still not aware of the role that the dark side of the contrast has been played in what is termed as corruption. And that what's been happening is that those two seemingly opposite ends are starting to come into the middle. And that's what started happening in 2020. And that group of awakeness and awareness is now starting to grow. And that divide, as Geraldine was saying, is that veil of separation is starting to melt. And all those, we will start to now, our family members who separated from us because of all the separation that was created in 2020, will start now coming back in, and we'll be able to start having these conversations, which are so important. It is so important for us to be able to have conversations where we don't necessarily agree, and yet we have multiple perspectives. And in this arena of multiple perspectives, we come into understanding so that we create something that's even better for the highest and greatest good of all concerned. And so one of the reasons the dark side of the contrast didn't want us having these conversations was because when we unify and we actually have more conscious, higher conversations, that fear and againstness starts to melt away and dissipate. And we're no longer divided and conquered and controlled. We're actually unified. And this unification of spirit, everything becomes possible. So yeah, part of the concept of this show is to be able to have multiple perspectives, and higher perspectives, right? Yeah.
I'd like to add that with us speaking our truth, that's what brings us all together, and that's what unites us, is just sharing our truth and from all different perspectives. And one of our truth may not be a truth for another, but it's a truth for many of us. And so that's what I love about coming together with so many of you powerful women, is that we have such powerful truth to bring forth.
Beautiful, beautiful, so true. I can't say for 2023 that unity is my word, because unity has been my word from 2015 when I launched my show, Oneness. And a new series I launched recently on my show was Truth and Freedom. Can we please have a conversation? Mm-hmm. Because there were people, like you say, I see there are people that have been awake many, many, many years spiritually, but do not see the shadow side. And I like instead of saying dark, I like to say shadow, because I love yin and yang symbol is God. Mm-hmm. And so the shadow side. So there's many people that have been practicing these spiritual higher consciousness techniques for many, many, many years, and they don't see the shadow. And then there's the people that since 2020 especially have awakened to the shadow. It's like in your face. How can you not see it? And then, but they're not awakened spiritually. So and I do think, especially this year of 2023, I think those two are coming closer together. But it is all about, and it's always been about, us being uniquely sharing our truth uniquely in love and light. It's not about forcing someone to agree with us. It's not about agreement at all. It's about sharing your truth, living your truth in love and light, and allowing another to do the same. Now, at the end, I've had hours and hours and hours of conversations with people I don't agree with one iota, and they don't agree with me one iota. We can talk for hours. At the end of the conversation, we're embracing. We are loving, because I'm not trying to force them to agree with me, and they're not trying to force me to agree with them. See, I say to people all the time, I don't debate. It's like, well, what's wrong with debating? The word debate means at the end of the conversation, there's a winner or a loser. No,
Mm.
there's no such thing as winner or loser. It's about sharing your truth in love and light. The other person doesn't have to agree with you one iota. You can still, at the end of that conversation, love and respect that person as the sovereign, divine being of light they are. When you see everyone as an aspect of God and an aspect of you, all you have is love for them, regardless of agreement. It's not about agreement. So unity has always been my word for the year.
I want to piggyback on that, because the one thing that I know about Caroline is, and I hope that's what I'm projecting too, is that everything here is for us. This whole mentality, if in 2023 we can get that expression out, that having that conversation with someone with a different perspective is actually for us. Nothing that happens is random. There's a game being played at a much higher level that we don't know exactly what part. So to trust that the things that are happening to you are actually for you and will push you to a different conclusion. Maybe have you see everything from the highest, most loving perspective, but it's all good. And that's where we've been in 2022. There's been the polarity, and that isn't natural. That isn't how nature works. We're going back to a more in harmony, working with the laws of the universe and our earth and our planet, because we are part of her. And so it's a whole different way of looking at not having boundaries, because you're looking at what's the gift in everything, and looking at conversations to find it if you don't see it. So having an inquiring mind is a big part of it. So that's why I picked illumination, is I really think that's shedding the light on everything. But if your worldview can change from being a victim to everything's here for me, everything changes. Everything that you attract changes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And we're all here for each other. I think that's bringing us together will help bring other people together. No one succeeds alone. We all need each other. Geraldine.
Yeah, I also think, thank you. I also think that we're learning the practical side of that, because I think it's almost as if we're becoming pioneers in a sense in refining the art of a higher way of communicating, higher way of holding space, something that perhaps we've not always known, through history, because of social engineering, because of those structures of the way that we perceive individuality, separation. What does boundaries really mean? What does it mean to have boundaries? Does it mean to cut off the person that you don't agree with, or what are the mechanics of actually interacting with someone, as you have all described? So it's we have to shift from within in a way that we know ourselves, and we begin to do the inner shadow work so that we can dig up the shadows that create those judgmental perspectives and help us be able to come into a place of neutrality, in a way that we can kind of hold space for ourselves, know ourselves, and be able to hold space for anyone else with any kind of opposing or different kind of opinion. So it's kind of like an art form that we are all learning. It's a new human, it's a new way of being. I think that's really important to kind of create that foundation and also hold space for our children so that they can also learn that, because it's not something that has been taught to us, and we want to pass it down to the next generation. So it's an exciting time.
Very true. And I simply say it's so simple that for eons we've lived in separation consciousness. The separation consciousness, thinking I'm separate from that other person, so I can hurt that other person. I can steal from that other person. I can go bomb that other country because they're separate from me. I'm separate from that tree I'm looking at. I'm separate from that blade of grass. I'm separate from Mother Earth. It's separation consciousness that causes all of humanity's problems. We are moving into unity consciousness. Unity consciousness is knowing, not believing, not thinking, not hoping, but knowing we are all one with each other, with Mother Earth, with every animal, every plant, every insect, with the universe. We are all one. There is no separation. And when we embrace that in our heart and soul and live it, when we are all living in unity consciousness, that's the fifth dimension, and that will be peace on earth.
The thing was, what I was kind of remembering when Geraldine was talking is that this old style of communication. So we're moving into conscious conversation. It's the ability to have conversations with people we might not necessarily agree with, and understand that when we have conversations with someone we don't agree with, that we're actually learning. It's like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. What a great perspective. Because every person's perspective has value. We can all learn from everyone else's perspective. All 8 billion of us have a unique perspective, and every person's perspective is just as valuable as anyone else's. So how can we learn through these conscious conversations of, wow, I never thought about it that way. And that's a really interesting way to look at things, and understand that the way that we evolve as a collective, because we are all one, is through having conversations with what we might not agree on. And in that disagreement, that debate is part of that old, call it the matrix, call it 3D, call it fear-based reality, call it whatever our term is for that old world that we're moving out of, is that right-wrong duality perspective that we have been in, and that learning through the contrast that we were learning through. And I'm right, you're wrong. I'm good, you're bad. In whatever that is, if it's in our political systems, our religiosities, in our education, the schools, right? How many schools it's like they're even in high school, that's our rival school. That's our rival country. So we've been going through this reality of my way is right and your way is wrong. And as long as there's I'm right and you're wrong, it actually stifles our collective evolution. And so if we can have these conversations of, wow, that is a really interesting perspective, and be able to maintain that higher view, that higher consciousness, even in conversation with people that we disagree with, everyone is learning through that. And that's how we create a new reality of being able to just say, that's a really interesting perspective. And I value your perspective. And I value who you are as a human being and the learning process and the path that you're on. I don't have to be right. And you don't have to be wrong. And when we start having those conversations from that perspective, it gets to be really fascinating of, wow, that is really interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. And life can actually become more of a game, the game of life. The great human experience becomes more of a game when we understand that looking at other people's perspectives can actually be part of the fun.
Yeah. I think it's especially important to view that perspective when we don't agree. So let's say that, Victoria, I don't agree with what you're saying. Now that gives me an option to either ascend or descend, and to choose who I want to be moving forward, not agreeing with you. Do I accept your disagreement, or do I bash it, or do I hold it up? And all of that gives us all the opportunity to decide who we are at every given moment. And I think that's important for everyone coming up on our path, whether it's directed at us or if it's something we're watching. Whenever we don't disagree, instead of thinking of it as a disagreement, think of it as an opportunity to really discover, who am I going to be moving forward? Am I going to move forward in fear, or am I going to move forward in love and unity? And I think that's what we can bring to our audience, and to help people understand, just because we don't agree on something doesn't mean that we have to be separate. We can use it as a mirror, so I can see sides of myself that maybe I want to adjust, maybe I want to grow with.
Very true. I think it also a big thing is the non-judgment. When you know that the other, whether you don't agree on anything, but you know that other is an aspect of yourself, like you were saying, Gloria, about mirror. If that's a mirror, that other person is just a mirror of you, and also a mirror of God. That what we call evil is God. It's not nothing, because there's nothing separate from God. Okay, for me, it's what the shadow is the absence of sacred knowledge, and the light is the sacred knowledge. So it's, for me, it's the light shining upon the shadow to transform it back to the light from which it came, because everything came from the light. Everything came from the sacred wisdom and the sacred knowledge. And the shadow is just the absence of it for that moment, you know? So when we look at everything, when we know everything is a part of God, we don't judge it. We say, okay, that's that person's path. That's their, their soul is guiding their life. And we have to allow them their life experience. We can share with love and light, but they like, oh, what you talking about is hogwash. It's like, okay, all right, you go do you, So it's all about letting people do them, and them allowing you to do you.
I also want to add that I think the benefit of a lot of these conversations is giving language to feelings, because I don't know about all of you, but I'm highly sensitive and have been since I was a child. And I had feelings that I didn't have words for. I still sometimes struggle with the higher consciousness awareness and bringing it into words. And so what we'll be sharing in this wonderful venue is concepts and words for those feelings that people may be awakening to, but they may not have the vocabulary, and they may have to try things on to find the right vocabulary. That's what I found through doing a lot of work with the near-death experiencers as a volunteer. And I found that I had a spiritually transformative experience, but I didn't know how to express it. I just know it, and I know it every day of my life. I am that. But hearing other people express their experiences, just like what we'll be doing here, should help lots of people, because this photonic light that's hitting our solar system, I believe, is going to make everyone empathic as the first step. And they're not going to understand, the people that are totally unaware, they're not going to understand if what they're feeling is theirs or the person right next to them. And so hopefully this venue will give lots of insight into how to navigate in that, and how to express it, so that it will help usher in more and more and more people working from that.
I also think that we're kind of coming into another level of spiritual maturity collectively as well, because we're kind of maturing from the idea that, these judgmental aspects of right and wrong, life and death, and the mature I guess, or the evolved perspective of that would be to understand that things function in cycles. Even as Caroline was saying, that we are evolving and we're moving away from this separate kind of perspective into a unity consciousness, means that we understand that there are times in our humanity, in our entire world, that we are going to see things as separate, and there's a divinity in that lesson of separation. There's a divinity in that shadow that allows the human to come into their highest implosion, to become a conduit of alchemy and transformation from that lowest form and transforming it into this highest refined way of being, existing, and embodying, this consciousness. So this level of awareness as seeing things as cycle and being able to embody those cycles of life and death of our belief systems, death of the ways that we see ourselves and the world, is actually what propels forward not only ourselves individually, but as a humanity, as a human race. We are kind of aligning with that.
I love that you touched on death, Geraldine, because when we let go, when we let our outmoded ways of thinking and perception and belief systems, when we let all of that die, we really get to experience heaven here on earth. And I think that it's important to bring that message across. Don't worry about the old self and the things that you're letting go of. Know that and trust that it will bring you towards your higher self, towards the people that will continue to elevate your perspective and to continue to support you through this process.
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's almost as if we're learning how to die and learning how to be reborn again. It's like it's a learning process.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Jolene, because that's exactly what I was getting as well, is that is actually what it means to be born again.
Yeah.
And so when a lot of us talk about our awakening experience, one of the things I've discovered is that when we have our awakening experience, a lot of times it involves the death of the old self.
Right.
And that you're reborn, born again in love.
Yeah.
And born again in higher understanding and a higher spiritual perspective. And that it doesn't have anything to do with religion. It's about being born again in spirit and born again in love. And that's what's happening with the collective of humanity right now. That it's like this planet and all the people, all the beings on this planet are going through a death experience. It's a death of the old reality. And the beautiful thing is that what's coming out of that is the birth of a new humanity, of a new earth that is being reborn and resurrected as our higher potential, as the earth's higher potential, reborn into a more loving, a more light field, a more spirit-led experience for the entire human collective and for the earth herself. And so it's a rebirth. So rather than, a lot of people are really afraid right now because we are facing the death of an old reality, and death is a very scary thing to face. And understanding that we're also in a rebirth experience. And what an extraordinary time to be alive, that we get to be a part of rebirthing Earth and rebirthing the human experience. And we chose to be here. We get to be here. And we get to play a role of being able to create an entirely new reality for the human experience. And what an extraordinary, beautiful time to be alive.
Beautiful. So true. And I always say, I always say I keep things very simple, and I try to. For me, every person's actions come from one of two places. Their actions come from a place of love or a place of fear. So whenever you're trying to decide to do anything, whatever you're going to do during that day, ask yourself that one question. Am I doing this from a place of love, or am I doing this from a place of fear? Because fear is just, again, the absence of love. Because fear, I remember as a very, very young child, like 4 or 5 years old, I'll never forget higher self saying to me, fear is unreal. There's nothing to fear except fear itself. And I got that download from my higher self at a very young age. And I didn't have the words 4 or 5 years old to express that. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt. It wasn't even about hearing. I knew what I felt in my heart. And so it's being true because I was afraid of the dark. And that's when higher self's like, why are you afraid of the dark? Nothing to fear but fear itself. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know? So just that simple question, am I doing this from a place of love or am I doing this from a place of fear?
Okay. Nobody wanted to jump in after that. Yeah, and Caroline, it is about that fear is simply an absence of love. And fear is actually the lowest vibration of love because love is all that is. God is love and God is all it is. Therefore, love is all it is. And so fear is simply the lowest vibration of love. And there is still love in that, which is that self-preservation that's built into every human being. And so if people are making decisions from fear, it's because they don't understand that everything, as Kathy said, is for us. It's all God experiencing itself through each of us and for us. And that when we start to understand that love is all it is and fear is just an illusion, and there isn't really anything to be afraid of, then we can come back into the space of love. I'm doing everything I do in my life from the position of love. And then everything else that is fear-based is just a mental construct we've created that it's not really real. And the other thing too, for a lot of people, and I love that you talk about the shadow. I talk about it as the dark side of the contrast. And really it is what people need to understand is that the darkness is, again, just an absence of the light. And to remind people, there is no such thing as a dark switch. There's a light switch. It's just the absence of light. And so because so much light is now flooding the planet, that's why we're now able to see the shadows and do our collective shadow processing, because you can't actually see the shadows in the dark. But because there's now so much light flooding the planet, we can now see the shadows and we're able to process them. And so that's another thing that's really great about what's happening on the planet right now, is that the shadows are now the light is shining on them so we can actually see them. And so we don't have to carry them forward into this new reality we're creating. And there is a way to be grateful even for the shadows, because on a soul level, we agreed to learn through the shadows. We volunteered to learn through that contrast for our own soul's expansion. And so there's a way to be grateful for even the darkest shadows that we've experienced individually as well as collectively. And I love that you're bringing that up, because I think people really need to see the value of the shadow.
I love that. I would like to put a challenge forward to ourselves and everyone watching when it comes to fear. When we feel it, see it, I would like to challenge you to transmute that energy. So if I'm afraid of something, I'm going to pause and transmute it to the opposite. So if I'm really afraid of an opinion or what someone else is saying, instead of being afraid of it, I'm going to open myself to look at maybe a different perspective. Maybe something Caroline is saying might spark some fear in me because of my old patterns, and I know that doesn't work moving forward. So let me turn it to love. And instead of fearing what someone is saying, to allow myself to look at that person with love instead of fear. What if what she is saying is really meant to help me and I don't have to be afraid of it? So I'd like to put that challenge out today to us and to everyone who's watching. When you come across fear, just to pause and look for the love in it. That can start helping us make that shift towards love in everything and everyone that comes across our path today.
That's beautiful. A beautiful challenge to put out there. The other thing I'd like to say, and I'm saying this now as a mom. I remember before both my children were in spirit, me saying the worst experience any person can go through, mom or dad, is the law of what we call loss. I don't use that word. What we call loss of our child, for our child to leave this reality before us. And I've been getting a lot of sympathy, from people the last month. Now, especially this one lady I met through Helping Parents Heal, and she has a son in spirit. And then she found out, now she already knew my son was in spirit. Now my daughter is in spirit, and she was like, "Oh my God!" And so there's those, I love emojis. I think her favorite emoji is this emoji where a person has waterfalls coming out of their eyes. I never use those emojis, but I want to say to people that the last thing I want is pity. I don't want anyone to pity me. I know that my two children being in spirit, and they're right here, right? I think Nukia's on this side, Kyle's on this side. They're right here now. It was a soul plan before my birth. So what I'm trying to get to is that we are sovereign, divine being of light, creating. We are creator beings. We are creating everything that happens to us. I know, like breathing. My children chose me to be their mom. I agreed to that. And they told me, well, Mom, we're not going to be around in this 3D matrix, is what I call it, as long as you. But you're here for a mission, Mom. Matter of fact, my son stayed an extra 3 years to get me ready for my mission. That's what if anybody wants to read the chapter I wrote, And We Touched Heaven, it's my miracle on 34th Street, talking all about how my son did not pass in 2011 when doctors told me he would pass. He didn't pass till 2014. He literally pulled himself off life support and stayed longer. Like, okay, she's got to be ready for her mission. So I got to stay a little bit longer for her. And he did. And my daughter, it was very sudden when she passed, and she passed peacefully in her sleep. I had no idea she was going to pass. But I know that because they passed, I know it was a soul plan. It was a soul plan and a soul agreement I had with them. Everything that happens is for our highest good. And not only is it for our highest good, we planned it. And when you are awake to the fact that everything that's happening, you take ownership of it, it allows you not to go into this really dark place. Because a lot of people have said to me, I don't understand. I don't understand how you're even walking now. Both your children now are in spirit. And I'm like, and with each passing, it just gave me more encouragement to do what I came here for. So the one thing I do want to ask everybody, please don't pity me, because pity is a low vibration. Everything is about vibration. Pity is a low frequency. Please just send me love and light, and send me love and light. That's all I want people to do. Send me love and light. Please don't pity me, because my kids are not gone. Nukia's here. Kyle is here. My daughter already, she told me what she wanted me to. I was trying to think of what dress to buy my daughter. And she's like, no, Ma, not your favorite color. I'm a Delta, crimson and cream. I'm like, okay, Delta, okay. All right. So, and she's like, and I want to be laid to rest right next to my brother, Kyle. I'm like, okay. All of this came directly from her. It's like, okay. So I've been communicating with Kyle for 8 years. Now I've got the both of them, all the time telling me what to do. I was like, okay. So please, no, send me nothing but love and light, no pity. I don't want that pity energy. Thank you so much. Okay.
I love that, Caroline. You're such a beautiful channel for all of us in that transition, and to really understand that there is no death, just like you said. I honor you and I thank you for being so gracious with your beautiful energy. What a great example you are for all of us. So I think we should all send Caroline light and love so that she can have energy to help us all communicate with our loved ones, with the ones that we miss the most. And I love how you say, they're right here, they're right next to me. I lost my brother when I was 5 years old, and he's always been next to me, with me. I was 12 years old when my mother told me, stop talking to him out loud or they're going to lock you up in a nut house. And so I love that in today's age, where it's more mainstream, where we know our ancestors are always with us, and it's okay to communicate and to ask for guidance. And now with your experience, Caroline, proving to us that, hey, you know what? These energies are with us. There's no other place but here is something so beautiful and divine and such a beautiful gift to our viewers. So thank you for opening that part of your life so that we can all be that part of light with you. And now I'll call on Victoria. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, we have actually managed to get through our entire first episode so beautifully. I love how we have had such a beautiful flow between us, this wonderful camaraderie of who goes next. and that this conversation has flown with such ease and such grace, and such an important conversation for us to be having as we do move into this new year and into this year as the hearts of humanity are beginning to expand into understanding we can have multiple perspectives, and everything that we bring into this experience is equally valued and equally important. And this is going to allow our loved ones who have felt separate and who have felt disowned in a sense, and our friends who have felt like they've been put on the other side of whatever the conversation is that's been going around, swirling around the planet the last couple of years, of really creating this beautiful, loving space to bring them all back, to bring everyone into this conversation. Whatever the conversation happens to be, we bring all of humanity into this conversation and be able to do it from such a space of love and gratitude and acceptance for even that which we might not agree on. And not it. And so one of the things that's interesting when we go back to talking about everything we do doing from a position of love rather than fear is helping people understand that when we go into defending my position, that defense, again, as you were saying, Gloria, comes from a position of fear. Why do I need to defend myself? Why do I need to defend what I think is right? Why do I need to defend the narrative and the programming of wherever that came from? It's not even necessarily negative programming. It could be, positive programming. Well, why do I feel a need to be in this space of fear to defend whatever my beliefs are? If we step out of fear, there's no longer that need for defense. There is nothing to defend. If all of us are in the vibration of love and acceptance, there is nothing to defend. It's just you are where you are on your path and your understanding, and I am where I am on my path and my understanding, and let's have these conversations and see how we can move forward together, no longer in separateness, in this beautiful space of unity and oneness and sovereignty and illumination. And I don't remember what Geraldine's word is because in this new year, we're encompassing all of those words and all of those concepts as we move forward into what's really possible for humanity, and no longer buy into the beliefs that we are in any way separate or your side is better than my side and in any of that. Because the truth is that we are all divine love having a human experience, and we can all learn from each other. And all perspectives are viable and all perspectives are valuable. And that's how we, as a collective of human experiences, grow and move forward into what we all have the ability and capability to be. And I'm really seeing that for 2023, that humanity itself is going to start growing into a new potentiality, because we're starting to see that the division is part of the illusion. Separation is part of the illusion of fear, and bringing our families back together.
No one is well until we're all well.
Perfect.
That's right.
And what we're seeing is new words are coming into the general language, like consciousness. When I started talking about conscious business 20 years ago, no one knew what I was talking about. So there's new vernacular that's coming in that's going to help raise everybody's frequency, because there's going to be a way to have these conversations easily.
That's right. No one gets left behind.
That's perfect.
Well, thank you all for being here. For those of you who are watching now and in the future, thank you so much for your presence on this show and your presence on the planet, because every one of us are here in service to love, in service to the divine, and in service to the whole. And every role every person plays on this planet is vital to this human game that we're all playing. And no one is worth any more than anyone less, and no one is more deserving than anyone else, and no one's perspective is more valuable than another, and every person's role is equally important. And so as we move forward and until next week, just remember that we are all the love and we are all the light embodied in each of us. And until next week.